Welcome back to part 2 of our study called Canaan's Curse. And we're looking at Genesis 9:18 through 29. Let's start with 18 and 19 today. When we talk about how God is faithful, we see this in these two verses. Though it's not expressly stated in these verses, this is exactly what they mean here. God does what he says, first of all. Back in chapter 6, we read, "I will establish my covenant with you, and you shall come into the ark, you, your sons, your wife, and your sons' wives with you." This is the fulfillment of this part of the covenant that God had made. Noah and his family walked out of the ark just as God said. The promise that Noah would survive the worldwide judgment had been kept. God always does what he says he will do. God also cares for all people. The text says that all people descended from Ham, Shem, and Japheth. Every human comes from the family of Noah. Within the DNA of these three men and their wives, we find the genetic information to produce Africans and Asians, Caucasians and Hispanic people, even the Anakim and the giant family of Goliath and his brothers. All these people, all this genetic diversity, God protected and brought through the flood. God's concern was for all peoples and nations. This is especially important for us to remember as we read through Genesis, because the rest of the book will focus really on just one brother, Shem. Not even just his whole family, but 4 specific men of his family. Yet we must not forget that in the end of all things, every tribe, tongue, and nation that comes from Noah's family will be gathered into heaven. There's no room here for eugenics or polygenesis, which is the belief that different ethnic groups came from different beginnings. There's no room for that here in the Bible. Well, you remember the command, be fruitful, multiply, and fill the earth. That's what I'm trying to say. Fill the earth. You know, that phrase, that command still continues. Look at verse 21. Verse 21 ends with the fact that it was from the 3 sons of Noah that the earth was dispersed or populated. The creation mandate that God gave to Adam and Eve and then reiterated to Noah and his sons continued. But what happens next? In verses 20 through 22, we see that sin brings dishonor. We've already seen this in Genesis, and it won't be the last. Here we have the story of Noah's drunkenness. After the flood, Noah became a farmer. He planted and cultivated some grapes and turned the grapes into wine. Noah drank of the wine, enough that made him drunk and caused him to disgrace himself. Noah, the man who walked with God, fell from honor. Though he is a hero of the faith, all such heroes were still sinners. Then we come to Ham's dishonor. This has some controversy connected to it. What does this really mean? In verse 22, we are told that Ham saw the nakedness of his father and then told his brothers. Moses does not elaborate on the sin of Ham, but we see that what he does is a horrible act. Henry Law describes it this way: "And now an unlooked-for opportunity was obtained. He found his father plunged in the mire of sin. His guileless heart felt hellish joy. He cannot spare. He will not pity. He rushed as a wild beast to devour the prey. He called his brothers to the spectacle. No reverence for the long-witnessed godliness of his father restrained him. No love for such a father checked him. No reluctance to revile so high a name hindered him. Hatred of truth found matter for its sneers. A damaging fact was in his hand. He glories in his triumph." Though Ham has done a great evil, we next see the actions of his brothers, and we'll see that in our next study.